Hey, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the outreach director of GALECA, the Society of LGBTQ Entertainment Critics, and welcome to a GALECA Recommends panel discussion. Tonight, we're discussing the film The Inspection, directed by the amazing Elegance Bratton. Elegance, thank you so much for this film, and thank you so much for talking to us tonight.
Oh, wow. Thanks for having me, Jim. It's a real honor to talk to the people who fight for the stories that I tell. So it's exciting. Thank you.
You and this film have had an amazing year. I mean, you obviously made the film. This film was a closing night film for the New York Film Festival. The reviews have been amazing. 10 best list, Independent Spirit Awards, and next Tuesday, Jeremy Pope is up for a Golden Globe. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So I mean, how much of this film is based on your own experience?
This movie is 100% autobiographical when it
Mhm.
comes to hopes, fears, and desires of the lead character, even if it's a situation that I personally haven't been in.
Yeah.
But when it's the stuff between his mother and him, all of that is directly out of my life. Every word, every situation, but even that has required, some surgery in that,
Yeah.
if you're in a relationship with someone long enough, you can have the same argument for 10 years. So I'm kind of truncating time and rearranging locations in terms of those conversations. But yeah, all of that is directly out of my life.
Okay. I mentioned Jeremy Pope a little bit earlier. Jeremy Pope plays Ellis, the main character. Can you just talk to us a little bit about Ellis and all that he's dealing with as he decides to join the Marines?
Sure. The inspection is a story that definitely comes from my experience. I joined the Marine Corps when I was homeless after 10 years. I was kicked out of my house at 16 years old for being gay. And then at 25, I found myself in a shelter. And that's where we find Ellis French as well.
Yeah.
He's been away from his mother for some time. He's coming from a street life where love is very often transactional. And he doesn't understand, uh, or rather doesn't even believe that he's worth anything or worth any real support. So by the time he gets to boot camp, he's kind of like at his lowest point, and he's in desperate need of a new religion, so that he can have faith in himself.
There's some very emotional moments in this film. But I mean, how difficult was it for you as a director to make this and watch this happen, knowing so much that this is just so personal? How was that?
It was really complicated for me.
Yeah.
You know, my mom was killed about 3 days after the movie got greenlit
Oh,
in
geez.
February of 2020. So I mean, the movie was always supposed to be dealing with the rift between me and my mother,
Mhm.
but to have her death play her murder, I can't talk about it too much because there's still a trial going on. But to have that happen right before we got to set was really, really intense for me.
Yeah.
Um, in addition, the Marine Corps, I was serving during the National Hotel, so I was an out gay man before I joined the Marine Corps, and then I had to go back into the closet, which left a lot of kind of psychological damage on me as well. So just the reality of getting on set was at times kind of difficult, just because it's like it brought me back
Yeah.
to a moment in my life where I felt very alone and disempowered, But I would hate to only talk about the traumatic aspects, right? There's a lot of gratitude I have. I'm grateful to Gabrielle Union for taking on the challenge of playing my mom. That's I can't imagine the pressure that she felt having to deal with a grieving son and then this story that also happened to me. So I am grateful for her because she gave me some closure with my mother that I never got a chance to get. And I'm also happy to have had a chance to get back to the camaraderie and the nostalgia. And it wasn't all doom and gloom. There was a lot of fun to be had in my military career, and it was nice to have a whole set that had a shaved head and was dressed in camis and all the things that were familiar to me as a veteran. It was nice to be able to go back and get it again. So there's a lot of pain, but a lot of joy as well.
Exactly. Thank you. I wanted to ask you a little bit about Jeremy Pope. Can you talk about the decision and why it was important for you to have an out gay actor play this role?
Yeah, as a gay black man, uh, I can honestly say, and I love movies and television, and
Hmm.
it's very rare that I ever see us get to be the hero. You know, queer people get to be the hero, queer Black people, especially. And who I am as a Black gay man is very much cobbled together from the little bits and pieces I've seen of myself in media. You know, I really do believe that people pay to see movies and watch television shows to see themselves and to see aspirational versions of themselves. And when you're not included in the dialogue, very often that can kind of speak to your position in real life, you know? So it was important to me to not have to make it so that future generations of queer folks have to do all of that algebra in order to find themselves, you know, like this is, and so that's the first piece of why it had to be an out Black gay actor. I just know how much this movie would have helped me when I was a teenager if I had seen it and I had seen someone like me go through all that and triumph. It would have helped me believe a little bit more that I could, and that's the main reason. And it was my story too. It'd be different, I think, if this was like an adaptation, maybe, or something like that. I may not be as, you know, I wouldn't have been as resolute maybe in having to have a queer out actor, but because it was my story, I just wanted to make this movie, you know, available to any person who's ever felt disregarded or abandoned, any queer person who's ever been bashed. You know, I wanted this to be a movie that could speak to them and inspire them directly. And then, you know, and I'm saying this in reverse, it really should be the other way. But the most important thing is that Jeremy, I think, is a phenomenally talented actor. Regardless of his skin color or his sexuality, he's a true artist and an incredible vessel. And he helped to provide me a safe space to experience the emotion, all of the emotions that I was experiencing telling this story. And together we made Ellis French. You know, Ellis, I wish I was like Ellis French more, but you know, Ellis is a combination of Jeremy and I, you know, and I don't think it would have been as transformational if he wasn't an out Black queer actor.
I know that when I was growing up, a very long time ago, images of LGBTQ people were just far. I didn't see a whole lot, and I didn't see a whole lot positive. When you were growing up, what did you see that spoke to you that you maybe you identified with?
Uh, oh man, there's so many things. So I guess the first was Diana Ross in Central Park. I think it was like 1981, and she performed in the rain, and she did all of her hit songs in the rain. And I just remember watching that, and I tied a T-shirt around my head, and so I could have long hair like Diana Ross, and I did the whole thing in my living room. I remember that being a thing, and I remember thinking to myself, who are those men who know all the choreography in the front row? I wonder what they're all about. You know, that was one, and then I think another one that was really important to me was Paris is Burning. That was a movie that I just immediately fell in love with. I couldn't have been more than 12 when I first saw it on HBO, and I'm from New Jersey, right outside of New York. My mom was a Brooklynite, so I grew up going over the bridge and going through the West Village and seeing the girls and all kind of being hit on the hand, like, you know, slapped on the hand. Don't look at them. Don't think about them, because those girls, those trans Black girls and those gay boys, they have no futures, you know, that kind of thing. So then to see Paris is Burning after growing up in the homophobic house that I did, and like seeing, you know, Dorian and Peppa, and they're so fabulous and they're so confident and they're so queer and so proud. It just was really inspiring me. I used to talk to that movie because I grew up also in a very small town. I was the only Black kid in my town. So whenever that movie was on, I knew it so well that I could be any character, and I still do. I could be any character in the movie. So those were two movies. I mean, there's many more. RuPaul's important to me, and Karl Lagerfeld and Alexander McQueen. All these people are very important, but those were kind of the two things that kind of stand out for me. It's like the moment where I was like, oh man, yeah, it's kind of cool to be queer.
Okay. Before the tremendous success with the inspection, you mentioned Peer Kids, which was another
Mm.
huge success for you. Before that, you'd made a lot of acclaimed short films. But what was, I mean, Peer Kids got a lot of attention, you know, a tremendous amount of
Mm.
attention. How did your life change after the success of Peer Kids?
Oh wow. I mean, Pure Kids came out during COVID, so nothing changed. ever. It's like all the same day, like for
Oh
3 years.
wow.
But, I remember like it was strange because honestly, like when my shorts were going out, like I think my first short walk for me, my first, big festival was Outfest with that film. And I went to Outfest, and then but mind you, that film paid like 200 festivals.
Yeah.
And I tried to go to every single one of them that I could. I tried my very best. I begged for tickets, borrowed money, raised money, whatever I had to do to go, And so in my shorts, I went from, playing Outfest to playing Sundance. And then my partner, creative partner, Chester, also my husband,
Yeah.
had a movie at Cannes. And, going to festivals was kind of like, and being, you know, flown to festivals too, like, having a short film and like, oh, we'll buy you a ticket to come and talk about it. Okay. I have some sort of barometer of things being different, but then during COVID, when Pure Kids came out, it was all in my living room. Everything happened on my couch, the same couch. The funny thing is, the same couch I wrote the inspection on, and the same couch that I edited Pure Kids on was the couch that I, showed the film to audiences around the world. So in terms of like my day to day life, it was so different with a feature. I thought as I'm even hearing you say that is surprising to me sometimes because I'm like, it didn't feel like it was that big, even though if you would ask me to tell you all the things I did, it would sound big. But in the moment, it's like, okay, let me turn on this pot of collard greens low so I can do my interview. And then I'm going to come back and have dinner when I'm done. It just felt all kind of like even killed. But on a spiritual level, Pure Kids took me 8 years to complete. I started that movie in 2011 as a college student at Columbia University,
Mhm.
and then shot 5 years worth of footage, 400 hours of footage to be exact, and had no idea how to edit it, applied to film school, got in, and then I started making short films and eventually got an opportunity to raise enough money to finish Pure Kids, So labor of love, yes, that's exactly what it was, but it was also like a spiritual, just
Mhm.
biblical kind of experience of faith of like, I'm going to keep pushing this thing up the hill until I get over the other side. So on that level, right, of like, starting in 2011 and not knowing much of anything to getting it done in 2019 and having it on PBS and around the world, that was just a real confidence booster for me as a storyteller. And it was really affirming for me to have it be received so well because it let me know that like, sometimes you tell the types of stories I tell, like every movie I've ever tried to make, someone who's supposed to know better has told me you should not do that story
Yeah.
because people are not going to pay for that story, or it's going to be hard to get that story, financed and seen. So to have had such meaningful community support for something that me and my husband did because we just love our community, it means so much, and it was transformational, and it was affirming, and it was healing to me. But it all happened on my couch.
Okay. I'm going to ask one more question. I'm going to turn it over to let somebody
Sure.
get a chance to answer. You mentioned your husband, Chester. Chester's been by your side for a very long time as your husband, as someone who's worked on your films as a producer, the inspection. Can you talk about having Chester in your life, in both aspects?
Sure. Okay. Well, I guess I'll start with the inspection. I wrote it, the first draft of this in 2017 after we had sold our TV series called My House, which was on Viceland. It's a doc series about the ballroom scene in New York, contemporary ballroom scene, and following voguers, that kind of thing. And so I finally had a little bit of money, and in my head, I'm like, I've never had a moment in my life at that point where I didn't have to work a real job for 6 months. I was good, for that little bit of time. So I'm like, I better write a feature. And I wrote 3 of them in about a month. And the inspection was one of them. And I went to Chester, who produces, we do everything together. And I was like, Chester, which one of these should I go with? And Chester told me that the thing I do best as a storyteller is to bring the audience to a place that they could never go without me. And that, for me to do that at the top level, it needed to be very, very personal. So when you ask, what is the role? I would not be having this conversation with all of y'all if I didn't have this love in my life that sees all of me, accepts all of me, knows the best of me, knows the worst of me, and inspires me every single day to be better. I just don't know how to be here without him. And I'm sorry, I just love him so much. We've been through a lot this year, and last couple of years, really. And Chester's just been my main rock in all of it. And before anybody, I've never like. It's funny. We premiered the movie in L.A. at a special screening that was hosted by Dwayne Wade, Gabrielle Union's husband, and he asked me, what is an ideal love? What is real love and acceptance look like to you? And the only thing I can say is Chester. So yeah, that's what Chester is to me.
I'm going to let some other folks ask some questions. So anyone else want to ask some questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
I love the film so much. And when I was watching it, I was thinking about the fact that I wondered what it was like to write and direct the characters who were, I don't know how to say it other than just awful to Ellis.
Yes.
What's that like? It's not often we get an opportunity to write the people who harmed us and then to get inside of their minds as a director. I would just love to hear what that process was like.
It was a great question. This was a really challenging process for me because initially I just hated them. And I had a really good teacher at film school who said, you have to love every character in your movie, even the ones that do bad things. So getting to the place, which meant that I had to look at these people as full people instead of just people who did things to me, that I had to look at them as people who had been through things themselves. And I had to try to understand why they were so negative towards me. But I can say that process has been really good for me and healthy for me because it's allowed me to appreciate the complexity of the human condition in a way that I never did before. And it's allowed me to forgive myself as well. When this stuff was happening to me, I would beat myself up for getting beat up, and think that somehow not being strong enough is what there was something wrong with me that caused all of this to happen. And having to think about them has caused me to have to forgive them. And forgiveness is the greatest source of my strength, right? It has allowed me to leave things with the people who had the problem and not to carry their problems forward with me. So ultimately I'm grateful for it, but it was really, really hard because it meant I spent many years just wanting to hate them and writing drafts of hatred and not getting anywhere with them. And I had to really kind of pull back and just be like, okay, somebody loves them, even though I didn't. Why?
Elegance, we have a question in chat that I wanted to ask you. You received the Breakthrough Queer Visionary Award at NewFest in New York. Go Elegance. Can you talk about your relationship with NewFest as well as other major festivals and how they have supported your vision?
Wow. Well, thanks for the question. NewFest is a family festival for Chester and I. Everything we've ever done has played NewFest from the very beginning. And NewFest has always been just really supportive. Like I won an emerging queer filmmaker grant there. I think it was 2018. And it was really, really cool. And I got to meet, I already had met Patrick Ian Polk and the other award granters, right? But I got a chance to actually have a conversation with them, which was really, really cool. So I appreciated that. Specifically, I think that a lot of folks, for me, I wouldn't be where I'm at if it wasn't for queer and Black film festivals, and that's not a slight to the bigger festivals that I've played and succeeded at, but it is to say it is hard to get into Toronto. I applied to Toronto Film Festival for 6 years, never had anything get in until this film, till the inspection. Applied to Sundance with numerous films. Some got in, most did not, and you face it, especially coming from a film school environment where you're taught to kind of think of things in tiers and hierarchically, you're it's hard not to believe like, oh man, I didn't get into Sundance. What am I doing with my life? How will I have a career? And then thankfully there's New Fest and there's Out on Film and there's just so many Outfest Fusion and Outfest and Inside Out and American Black Film Festival and so on and so forth, all these other places that I got a chance to show my work and to talk to audiences, right? So they're just on that level, just like, okay, maybe it didn't get programmed at the big place, but it got programmed by my community. That's great. But then on a practical level, going to all these festivals, right? I didn't know when I first started that the Sundance programmer would actually probably be working at Inside Out and is also working at, I just didn't know that until I started literally traveling around to every festival, and you start to see the same faces over and over again. And you start to, so incidentally, it wasn't just that the constituency festivals, the Black and the queer festivals gave me my start. They also plugged me in socially to all of these decision makers and gatekeepers that I had no other means of meeting if I wasn't in these festivals. So, when you ask me about the role of these festivals, they've been essential to me being here and getting here, and to win an award as a breakthrough queer filmmaker from the festival that first put a bet on me with a movie about my life in New York City, a city I lived in. I met my husband in New York City. I definitely see myself as a New York artist, regardless of where I'm living in the world. So it felt amazing. It was the best. And Roger Ross Williams, another queer Black artist, someone I really look up to, awarded me as well. So it was freaking cool. It was awesome.
Oh, that's great. Do we have any other questions from some of our other participants?
Well, I have something I want to say. First off, I want to say that you're just a fantastic director, and I love that movie so much. A Black gay man. I grew up in San Francisco in the 60s. And, I went to the movies a lot, and I rarely ever saw myself on screen. And when I watched your movie, I was thinking of myself at like 13, what it would have meant to see this movie. So I really appreciate that. But the question is, or what I want to know about is that I was so amazed by how clearly delineated all the characters were. Very early in the movie, I was able to separate all of them, and I sort of knew them. And whether it's the casting or the writing, I wasn't sure, but I wanted to ask you, what do you think that's owed to, the fact that all the characters come out rather dimensionally and there's so many?
Wow, I love the compliment in the question. Thank you very much. Please keep those coming. It's tough. It's tough because they're definitely all based off of real people, for sure, right? There are people that I served with. For instance, Ishmael, when I was in boot camp, I didn't have a Middle Eastern recruit in my platoon particularly, but in the floor above us, there was a guy who was, I think he was Egyptian, probably, but nonetheless, they all called him Taliban. Mm-hmm. And I would see him getting abused all the time, because he lived right above us. So whenever we were leaving the squad bay to go do something or coming back, 9 times out of 10, the other platoon would be outside doing some sort of physical punishment. And more than a handful of times, he was at the center of that. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where you just want to just say something out loud, but you can't, because you're in a system that does not allow you to say anything. No one cares what you think about anything. And mind you, and the premise is to prepare you for war. So there is, the line of what is inhumane and not humane becomes a bit blurry when the idea is that I have to do something to you to get you prepared for the worst that could come from an enemy, right? So you're not really in a position to say anything. So I wrote Ishmael, right? I remember looking in this kid's eyes. I remember feeling so much for him and wanting so badly to do something for him. And that desire became Ishmael, and that desire is very real, and it's from a very real place in me, and then in terms of the drill instructors, my favorite drill instructor was actually, his name was Rooks. I called this guy Brooks, but, Rooks, he was great. He was just really, really funny. I used to wear these glasses in the Marines. They give them to you. I should be wearing my glasses now, but they glare. I don't want you guys to be distracted, but they give you these glasses, and they're called birth control glasses, BCGs, because when you put them on, no one will ever sleep with you. Is the idea, right? So I put mine on, and Brooks he looked at me, he's like, you look like Raj from What's Happening. And then literally for the next 90 days, it was just all What's Happening trivia, you know? So and he just ad lib the whole all day long. He's like a stand-up comedian. And he would always know that he could make me laugh the hardest. So he would just go at me until he got me laughing. And then once he got me laughing, he punished me. So, you know, that's where that character comes from. So they all come from real people. And they all come from like a real desire to, you know, just an appreciation of these people as well. Like these are people who were very formative to me that I've never seen this man again, you know, but he's stayed in my heart. So maybe that's where it comes from. But I don't know where any of the creativity comes from, honestly. I sit down and I pray and hopefully something good comes out. You know?
Any more questions? Alex, I have to ask you, I mean, what's it like working with A24? Because A24 has such an amazing track record of great independent films, great queer independent films. What's it like working with a studio like A24?
It's kind of a dream come true. I've enjoyed it quite a bit. You know, it's a challenge making any movie. Every movie is a miracle, and I don't think the studio will shield you from the Murphy's Law of it all. Like we shot in Mississippi in the dead of summer. It was 116 degrees every single day. We shot the movie in 19 days because we had a COVID shutdown, and it meant that we were supposed to shoot it in 23 days, which was short. But then after the COVID shutdown, we lost a week. So, you know, there was just a lot of like decisions being made under the gun. And you really want to have a partner in place that takes that really privileges the creative process all the time, even when there's economic pressure. And I can say A24 is that kind of studio, right? We were able to have the necessary conversations to keep the show going, but I never felt like I had to compromise the essence of the storytelling. Felt supported. And then now that we're on this side of the equation of like releasing the movie to the world, and you know, they've just been the biggest champions I could have asked for. They really have committed to launching my voice and launching this film, and they standing 10 toes down behind my vision. I'm excited to make this movie with them, and hopefully a couple of more. We'll see.
That's great. You mentioned that, you know, your Pure Kids success was largely on your sofa. That was because that was going on in the world right now. But we're in a time right now where we're back in theaters again. What's it like to be able to see this film with an audience again?
Oh my God. Well, it's tough. It's like this is I'm excited to get to other projects in my career that aren't this personal, because sometimes with this film and an audience, it's all the emotions that are in the film.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that it happened to me, a lot of it happened to me. And when it was happening to me, I felt very much alone. I felt very much like, you know, it was me causing it in a way. So then to be in a crowd and have a whole bunch of people look at my mom like, you were wrong for that. It may sound simple, but at the time, nobody told her she was wrong for what she was doing. I just went through it, you know? So that can become it's so positive that it can be overwhelming at times, because you just start to think about all the things that you blamed yourself for. And to have this audience of people laughing with you and crying with you lets you know that, you know, you really were okay that whole time. And that's just like really, really liberating, you know. But then it's also like, there's also a huge sense of relief, because you write these days, because I wrote everything I write, like where I'm sitting right now is where I'm writing my next film. And, you know, you're staring at a screen and you're like, I think this is funny, or I think this is sad, or I think this is whatever. And then, God willing, you print it out and someone says, here's some money, go turn those pages into a movie. And you sit down in front of an audience and you're like, God, I hope it was funny. I hope it was sad. I hope it made people angry. And to see that it's working is like such a relief. Oh my God. Whew. But yeah, it's a joy. I feel blessed. I'm overwhelmed, and I love the clothes. I get to wear all these cool clothes again now, and I have a reason to get dressed up. I'm not in my pajamas all day. It's awesome. I love it.
Okay. Do we have any final questions for Elegance?
Yeah, I have a question. Hey, Elegance.
Hey,
Could you talk a little bit about working with FET Brown, how you two
sure.
came together, and what was her role on set and after?
Sure. So okay, so then in that before, like I said, we wrote the first draft in 2017, and after that draft, I applied to every lab you could imagine, got rejected to every lab many times over, and then kind of got to a point where I was like, all right, maybe I should just try to go the old-fashioned way, just knock on doors until someone makes it. And then got an opportunity to go to the last Los Angeles Film Festival where we met Effie Brown. Chester and I went and we met Effie Brown, and Chester pitched the inspection to Effie, and Effie was really seemed to be passionately into it. I imagine this is like at like 9:45 at a party, you know, like what have you. We emailed her, she didn't write back for 2 years. Then Chester applied to Tribeca Film Institute and got into a lab where I was able to pitch the movie about 60 or some odd times, different people in New York City. Nobody bought the movie, but changed the when you say a story out loud enough, you start to hear what's working and what's not working, and it shifted things quite a bit. Wrote another draft, and then Chester took that and applied to Film Independent Producing Lab, got in, which led to another draft because now we got some notes from emerging producers and experienced producers, and then that draft got us into fast track at Film Independent, and then at that fast track I had 12 different offers for the movie. And the funny thing is, the first draft of the script I took to A24 in 2017 as well. And I literally told my friend that, I was like, listen, dude, this is going to change your life. You're going to say yes to this when you read it. And he read it in 2017 and said no. Right. So then, but fast forward to 2019, I was able to call that same friend. I actually sent him a GIF of like Harry Potter on the train going to Hogwarts. And I was like, hey, man, train's leaving the station, bro. And he jumped on. Incidentally, the script was circulating around Hollywood. Effie heard about it through the grapevine. And then she called us in, and when she committed, she dove head first and she jumped right on. So it was like, it's funny, it took about 5 years for the movie to all come together in like a few days. But once we got on set, it was just, we were up against, I don't want to overstate it because every movie is a miracle, but we were up against all of the odds. And Effie was such a, her experience level really, really shone clear and helped us guide us through the storm and get us to this moment now. So, and she's also Effie Brown. Honestly, I wrote her when I saw Dear White People, and I heard the Oscars So White conversation. I wrote her name down in my vision book in like 2016, and it was just through constant work at it and just never giving up. Eventually, she manifested into our lives, and now she's a huge champion. So don't give up. If you show up every day, you might win.
I think I'll close out tonight with one final question. I've read a lot of things on the internet, but you can't always rely on the internet. But so tell us a little bit, if you can, about some of your upcoming projects.
Oh, wow. I can't get too deep into it. What I can say, because they're not announced yet,
Yeah.
y'all are the press, so there's nothing off the record. But but not like, what I can say is that I am very much interested in exploring more family, and I'm really interested in memory right now, and the idea that like trying to find a visual language to express a belief that I have, that the body lives cultural memory, like that all of the experiences that comprise one's DNA are actually memories that need to be unlocked. And I'm looking to do this through all sorts of genre stuff, and it's going to be cool. There's one project I guess I can talk about. I'm finishing up a documentary about James Reese Europe, who's the first Black man to be a captain in the military. Rather, he served internationally in it as a captain, as an officer, during World War I. And he was the head of the Harlem Hellfighters Band, the 369th Regimental Band, which brought ragtime music, jazz music to France during World War I, starting a love affair that exists to this very day. So I'm looking at his life through the lens of W.E. Du Bois's double consciousness, and just trying to understand how art, creativity, and militarism and all these things combine to create the world we live in today.
That's great. Elegance, congratulations on such an amazing year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's the film. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us tonight. We really, really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I hope y'all had a wonderful holiday and have a very, very happy new year. Talk to y'all soon.
Thanks so very much, everybody.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.